The present state of COVID-19 is the first thing that springs to mind. Many people are anxious about possible threats in the world. I don't find it scary since I've been through a near-death experience when I saw things most people don't. My thoughts turn to the reasons why we shouldn't be scared of dying following our talk on the stroll that day. Something happened to me when I was 28 years old that made me question my priorities, my place in the family, and my connection to God. Because of my government job, I was often away from home and didn't get much time to spend with my family. This experience brought my family and I closer together. Until today, at almost 67 years old, I haven't said anything about this, despite its importance to me. My wife and maybe a few close relatives are the only ones who know what happened. Every single day, I experience it to a very real degree. While skiing in Park City, I was having a great time. While we skied all day, I stood in queue for the lift. Suddenly, a woman swung her ski poles in every way as she descended the hill, and we were both hurt when she crashed into us in the ski queue. It was only natural that I went skiing for the rest of the day. When I got to my destination, I took off my glove in the car, but my thumb was still hanging down. The tendon that stabilized my thumb had been severed. The agony started as soon as I got inside the warm automobile. As a result, we scheduled surgery and got everything ready for it. What I remember best is being a patient in the operating room. My right hand and I were both covered by a medical expert. There was a nurse in there, and she yanked my thumb. Since this was the nurse's first tourniquet procedure, she was nervous about changing the valves and told the doctor as much. The doctor reassured her that he will get her through it. One can use the pressure-raising valve to tighten the tourniquet and the pressure-releasing valve to loosen it here. They were both tightly wound from the beginning. Once again, the pressure started to rise after the nurse had adjusted a single valve. After opening the second valve, I completely forgot to close the first one. It seemed as if out of nowhere, something began to ascend my arm. I felt it in my chest. Out of nowhere, I was able to observe the operation from a height above my own body. Being in groups set it apart from prior experiences. Someone was watching me from his perch by my side. I paid great attention to every thread that was stitched into my thumb, regardless of how common it is. To my horror, I watched as the nurse bolted from the room, blaming herself of the murder. I shudder to think of the terror she must have felt, that all her hard work had been for naught. I felt at ease as if I knew the person I was sitting next to, even though we had never met before. Nothing was exchanged physically. Everything was done in one's head. Although the doctor's movements could be heard, the individual sitting next to me stayed entirely silent. Due to the inaccuracy of both the wall clock and my own watch, I am unsure of the exact duration of our stay to view the surgery. We looked on as the doctor was hell-bent on finishing the operation on my thumb. I watched as he snipped in several spots while he wrapped a tendon around my thumb. As he put me back together, I watched. Poor quality came out of what was supposed to be an easy process. We sat there for what seemed like an eternity, and I remember sitting on top of myself. As I lay on the table, arm outstretched and covered by a sheet, I saw the surgery from above. "All right, it's time to leave," someone said to me in my head. Someone urged me to turn around and never look back since I remember it so clearly. The instant the thought crossed my mind, I was standing in a field. I couldn't see my buddy, even though they were standing right next to me. A group of enormous, lofty trees was visible to my left. These trees were really strange looking with their tall trunks and green foliage covering their crowns. There were a lot of them. To my left, next to it, stood a beautiful field of waist-high wildflowers. As someone who loves gardening and garden upkeep, I often find pleasure in gazing at the beautiful flowers. The most breathtaking array of colors stunned me. Both to my right and ahead of me extended a considerable length of grass that reached up to my waist. I did nothing more than stand there. The next thing I know, my escort had vanished, and I was completely on my own. There was complete calm. What I remember best is being able to see long distances to the left and right. I couldn't turn around, but I could see a white cloud ahead of me. A mental film of my life started playing out of the blue. It was something I saw up until I was 28 years old. No matter how excellent or awful my deeds were, what was important was that they were the basis for my evaluation. It was delightful and terrible at the same time, as far as I can remember. It was what it was. Not a single soul dared to say, I wasn't involved in that. Yes, I completed it. Many things in my life at the time were headed in the wrong direction. I was able to accumulate enough wealth as a government employee by working my way up the corporate ladder at the Postal Service. I worked as hard as I could in rural Jackpot, Nevada, knowing that my employer was only interested in making a profit for himself and not for my family. Out of all of them, I think I watched it. In spite of the ups and downs, I was certain that I could improve my life. After it was over, I felt completely at peace. Something about it felt genuine. No explanations or refutations were offered. Because it was entirely internal to me, existing solely in my mind, it seemed quite real. On top of that, I was totally alone and not bargaining with anybody. In my head, I had the entire scenario laid out. My initial reaction upon finishing was, it's over. I was prepared to go on after accepting my death. Even though the person in question was no longer physically there, I was compelled to get up and start going forward by an inner voice. An arm stuck out about to this degree as I got closer to this white cloud. That is something I will never forget. A farmer would have been proud of that strong arm. His strong, muscular hands and arms were far bigger than mine. Like him, I reached out my hand to shake his. "This is not the moment for you," he said. "You still have a lot of work to do." I missed him rethrusting his arm since the cloud obscured my view. I regained my bodily shape at that moment. The doctor said that a war was going on inside my body. I didn't want to go back to the wartime tranquilly. My memory is clear of him inquiring, "What was happening? Why were you so haphazard when you were eating?" I told him that the location was just too picture-perfect for me to ever desire to go back. During the initial 20 minutes, a document indicated that I had passed away. While I was away, I was at the most peaceful place I could have imagined. Connie was escorting me out of the room as I was led into the corridor. She had no idea that anything had transpired to me. There was an unmatched calmness that enveloped me for 3 days. I will never forget the 3 days of complete relaxation I experienced in that hospital bed. I appreciated how often the doctor checked in with me to see how I was doing. He was very compassionate. At last, Dr. Skuzin arrived. "This is my wife, Connie. Even after 45 years of marriage, I have never told anyone about this sacred and personal aspect of my life. It changed the way I look at life and the world in general. As a result, I no longer view my wife and our relationship as two individuals, but as one. I do my best, I truly do. Occasionally, I err. I have so much to learn from life. My entire world shifted when I was 28 years old. My bond with my Heavenly Father has grown stronger as a result. I have absolute faith in God's existence. Furthermore, I can say that I am not afraid of dying since I hope for a joyful afterlife. So far today, my thumb has been doing really well. Because of this, I called it my bionic thumb. In any case, the things I value most are my wife and family.